very much. This is Ron Moore. This is City of Westfield Building Corporation. Call to order. Roll call, please.
Larry Clarino. Here. Ron Moore.
Here.
And Steve Latour here. All present and accounted for.
We have a quorum. Okay. Today let's talk about the minutes. The minutes have published from the October 4th meeting. I will call, have they been given the opportunity to review them? Are there any changes or adjustments to the minutes that you see? The October 4th minutes.
I'll make a motion, we approve.
I'll second.
All in favor signify by voice vote.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Minutes for November 22nd have been made available and for your review. If you have any questions or any comments,
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
I'll second.
November 22nd, 2021 minutes moved to be approved. Voice vote.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Now let's get into the next part of it. Thank you all for joining us today. I very much appreciate the fact that you took time from your day to help us understand exactly where we are with the progress of the Station 81 project and the financing thereof. So the bond issues were completed. Can someone discuss briefly as to where we are with that process on getting those monies situated for disbursement?
I can go ahead. I can jump in on that.
Okay.
The closing was held and the bond proceeds were deposited with Huntington National Bank as the trustee. Cost of issuance were paid. The remaining bond proceeds are in a project account with Huntington, and that is the construction account underneath that project fund is where requisitions should be made to get payment of invoices. Payment is made by submission to the trustee of an architect or engineer's certificate of the work performed and materials delivered. And that certificate and an affidavit of the building corporation's authorized representative needs to be presented to the trustee. Your October 4th resolution appointed the mayor as the authorized representative of the city pursuant to the trust indenture. And that's just really briefly in a nutshell, the process for payment of invoices going forward from the construction account.
Okay.
Be happy to discuss Ron and building corporation members the bonds themselves if you want to. But just briefly, the Indiana statute that the bonds are issued under is 36-110. That's the lease rental statute also. You cannot make payment of lease rentals until the project is completed and placed in service. So since the bondholders want their interest payments, there's capitalized interest in the bond issue that pays the interest payments due to the bondholders until February 1 of 2024, at which time I think that's the first lease payment is due. I'm sorry, it's January 15th of 2024. The lease payments are due on the 15th of January and July, and they're made pursuant to the lease and the indenture directly from the city to the bond trustee, and those payments are considered as being paid to the building corporation. And then when the trustee, those payments are required to be made, as I said, January 15th and July 15th. So the trustee has those funds in advance of the principal and interest payment dates on the bonds, which are February 1 and August 1 of those years. The statute requires that the city include in its budget a levy and funds sufficient to make the ensuing years lease payments. If they are not included, the DLGF should, in the approval process of the budget, and Greg and Jamie, you can chime in here, they should catch that and make adjustments to the budget so that those funds are available if, because these bonds are payable from the lease payments, and the lease payments are payable from ad valorem property taxes. There is a statute in Indiana that allows the bond trustee to make a notice claim to the state treasurer if a payment is not made on time, and the state treasurer will intercept any funds that it has in its possession or comes into its possession that would be ordinarily due to the city to make that payment.
Thank you, Jim. Question. Yeah, you mentioned two dates, 1/15 and 7/15 notice dates for payments that would be due on the 1st of February and the 1st of August. Is that correct?
Correct.
Who sets up those notices? Do we set that notice up with the clerk treasurer's office, or, I mean, just so we make sure that we have the monies in place? Talk a little bit about that process real quick, if you can.
Let me turn that over to Greg or Jim, since they're on the accounting side, but I believe that the trustee sends an invoice regarding the upcoming payment.
Okay.
I could be wrong about that.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Greg Garatas with Financial Solutions
Hi,
Group.
Greg.
And I have Charlie on with us. Charlie, do you know, are they going to provide us a notice, or are we going to, a lot of times, Jim, they aren't doing that. Do you know, Charlie? Charlie, you're muted.
I'm sorry.
Huntington Bank should provide an invoice to the clerk treasurer for that lease payment.
There we go. So what we'll do, along with kind of keeping an eye on the account between now and then, we'll make sure that it gets built into the 2024 budget. And then we'll also make sure that notices get sent out. But let's put it this way. We don't depend 100% on the banks, because notices have been not coming through necessarily on a timely basis.
Yeah.
And the key probably there for the building corporation is in 23 is when the city will approve the budget that includes the lease rental payment. So there is a pretty advanced requirement on getting that in the budget so that it can be funded, because this will be paid from property taxes to be collected in the future.
Okay.
Any further ways we can help you on that?
I think that clears it up for me. I appreciate that. I was looking at the arbitrage agreement, and several of the exhibits in there for the financials, the columns tend to run together. So I was trying to understand if we had enough interest capitalized in the bonds to be able to make it to the February 1st, 24 repayment date. Can you address that, Greg?
Sure. So, Charlie, that should have been presented in the closing report. And there you go. Thank you. Excellent. Go ahead.
So you can kind of see the flow of funds. Top part is where the bond proceeds came in. We made a deposit into the construction fund, which is what Jim was talking about earlier, and then the capitalized interest fund. So we've got 3 interest payments that are going to be made from capitalized interest, and you can see how those are allocated and how we account for those. Any questions on that?
Charlie, technically then, for the 24 budget, which we'll be setting in August of 23, will be including the 2/1/24 and the 8/1/24. Is that correct right there?
Yes.
And it's spelled out on that schedule, or though that schedule's, yeah, there you go. And this is something we make and by the way, you'll notice that these dates are 1/15 and 7/15. That's so we have an extra 15 days. We get it there on 1/15 so that they can make the payment on 2/1 of 2024.
Okay, so we do have enough enough interest in these bond issues that has been capitalized to cover that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I notice in the, again, in the arbitrage agreement, and I believe this is excerpts from other things, there are a number of things in here for post-issuance activities that are assigned to the clerk treasurer's office. I don't belabor the number of things that has in here for her to do. I just wonder, has anyone been in contact with the clerk treasurer's office and set up any of these accounts that are necessary to be able to manage the flow of the money, both during the build, going into repayment?
Well, go ahead.
I think we've just got the project funds
I can't
set up
hear
for
him.
now. I don't have those in front of me, but we do work with the clerk
Can't hear.
treasurer's office, our office on
Hey,
that.
Jim, you're going to have to speak up. We can't hear
Oh,
you.
sorry. Turn on my, yeah. So we do work with the clerk treasurer's office on that. And we've set up one fund for the bond proceeds. I don't know that we've got the levies, the property tax and payment funds set up yet, sinking funds, because there's nothing yet to show there until we get a levy. So yes, we've set up, and I don't have that in front of me, I apologize, but I've let John know and fire chief know what that fund is. I think it's three.
Is that the 330 fund,
30.
Jim?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's what's set up for now, and like I said, treasurer's office, make sure they understand.
So clerk
Is there a
treasurer's
CDUA
office
on
is
this
in
as
the loop
well?
on this. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Is there a continuing disclosure requirement on this? I'm assuming probably not because they're.
No, no,
There's not. No.
no.
So if there's any, we function as dissemination, we have in the past, dissemination agent for the city. They haven't had any public bond offerings for a while. They've all been private placements, which typically don't have online reporting requirements. But when they do, the treasurer's office to make sure that those get identified and posted timely. So is there any requirement on this one, or is it the bank will ask for the information of the purchaser? Jim, do you know what? I didn't look that up in your closing doc.
Yeah, and I don't recall.
So usually if
But it's-
if there's nothing in detail, guys, it'll be, they want the annual
Really
reports
have a
of the
hard time
city
hearing
and the audits when they're available.
Hey, Jim, we're having a really hard time hearing you.
Go ahead.
Jim Treat, we're having a really hard time hearing you.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's all right. Could you go over the continuing disclosure one more time?
Yeah, so I don't think we have a formal continuing disclosure requirement because this was a private placement, a negotiated sale. And, but there may be some requirements that the purchasers, upon request of the clerk treasurer's office, will be provided certain information. Typically, that would be the unaudited annual financial report that we assist the clerk treasurer's office to prepare, that's posted on Gateway every year on March 1st. And then the audits of the city when they're available, the audit reports from State Board of Accounts. So to the extent those are requested, we'll work with the clerk treasurer's office to make sure those are provided to the purchasers on a timely basis.
Okay.
Did you hear that, John?
Thank you. My last
Yes, thank you.
question. My last question is, what role do we play in seeing that those funds are transferred to, as they go through, both either during the build or during repayment? What role do we play? Do we meet and approve the transfer of those funds, or how's that work?
Jim, I think you have a process, right, in you almost look like
Yeah,
we
I'm not,
lost
I'm not,
connection.
what was that question? I'm not sure what transfer.
I said,
he
what
was on,
role
Greg.
does the Board of Directors for the city,
Right.
Westfield Building Corporation play in the transfer, the movement of the funds as we go forward? If any.
In transfer, you actually mean payment of claims, correct?
Yeah, that would be
There's somebody on
correct.
mute.
Yeah.
Payment of claim.
Essentially, he's asking, is
what-
there a claims report similar to
What
what?
happens is those funds are in the construction account. There is, as I indicated in the trust indenture procedure, for the trustee to pay those funds. So those funds are already sitting with the trustee, subject to payment of claims for construction of the project.
Okay,
And those are payable by submission to the bond trustee of an architect's or engineer's certificate stating what work has been performed. There's a typical form that's used and materials that have been presented, combined with invoices and backup information, which the trustee then makes payment pursuant to that request. That request has to be approved by an authorized representative of the building corporation. And for ease of access, the resolution that you adopted on October the 4th designates Mayor Cook as the authorized representative to approve those requests.
thank you. Okay, any other questions for?
So
For the
Jim,
financial side.
practically speaking, do you know, is John going to put those requests in front of Mayor Cook?
I'm sorry,
And
Greg.
John, you're on here, aren't you? I don't
Yeah,
see you.
John's on there. He's on.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you are, John. We lost you, John.
That was weird.
So.
I'll try that
subject to
again.
John. There you go.
Yeah. Right now, as I'm writing this down, so to answer Ron's question, the process is the invoices come in, they would go to Mayor Cook for review and approval, and then we would send them to Huntington for the payment. So Ron's question is, would they be looking at those before the mayor signs off on them?
They're not required to, John. But
Okay.
They could, but they're not required to do that. I think that's what they're trying to identify, what their ongoing needs
Right.
are. But
That-
now that the bonds have been issued, most of your heavy lifting's done
Okay,
on the building corp.
okay. And
Really isn't too much to do. It's all internal, as Jim Crawford's been explaining, that it's set up so that the city can monitor the project, approve the payments, and then make sure the bonds get paid. So.
Okay.
I wish I could hear better.
All right, so
That's the way I would
we can then go ahead and we could put together the packets and circulate them to the building corp and to the mayor at the same time. But it's the mayor who's signing off. Okay, thank you.
Exactly.
Is that where you go with this?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we understood what we were expected, what was
Yeah,
expected of us to
yeah.
do at this particular juncture. If it's necessary for us to sign off on that, we'll certainly accommodate that. If it's not necessary for us to sign off on that, but we get a chance to review it,
And then
that
I
would
might
also
throw
help,
one
be
more
helpful
thing
in terms
in.
of due diligence.
At completion of the project, the building corporation will notify the trustee that the project's been completed, and any funds that are left, if there's been underspending in the construction account of the project fund, those funds will be held for 1 year, and then if there are no more claims against them, they'll be used to make a payment to the sinking fund for the bonds.
Okay, good. Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
And John, just to back up, so you're clear on one technicality point, I think you said you would give the invoices and you would give that one-page sheet that Jim has put together that kind of is the cover page for it. And that will be what the mayor will sign off on. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are we talking that affidavit sheet? Is that what we're looking at? Basically, it becomes a cover sheet for the invoices.
That's correct, right, Jim?
I need to see that cover sheet, but
Okay,
the
I'll circulate it.
I'm assuming, yeah, I shouldn't assume, but the delivery to the trustee needs to include an architecture engineer's certificate with the typical certification that they make, that they've taken a look at the invoices, they've inspected the project, and things that are being said were performed and constructed, or the materials that have been delivered and not yet installed are in fact that those things are true.
So a G703 would work, right? The typical AIA G703.
Yeah.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
And John, obviously, as you put together the first couple, everybody's more than welcome to help you. More than willing to help you, I should say.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Any other questions for the financial side of this project?
I do have a question. Just, is the mayor the only signing authority, or could, son of a...
You blanked out, Jim, or John. The mayor or,
Yeah, could the mayor or the building corp sign off? So
yeah, so
if
Jim, let's say the mayor's gone for 2 weeks.
Thank you, that's where I was going.
Who else is authorized to sign it?
Any officer of the building corporation, which
There we
is
go.
all three members, since each one holds an officer position.
Okay, is that helpful?
Yes, that's
For you
very
guys?
helpful.
Okay,
Appreciate
all right.
that.
And then we do have some current engineering invoices that are outstanding. So the process is just as we've described it, right? I'm going to attach those to the document. I'll circulate it to this group. We'll make sure that I've done the paperwork correctly. Then we'll get it to the building corp, then we'll get it to the mayor. Is there any other step I need to take? Okay.
And you'll send it to the trustee bank.
Yes, after,
And you have the information of that in the closing report.
yes, Jim Treat sent me the information.
Perfect.
Thank you, John.
The clerk treasurer's office.
Thank you,
will
gentlemen.
monitor based
Appreciate
upon
the
trust
information
statements
you've
that
shared
we
with-
get. So you don't need to send that to the clerk treasurer's office in case you had that question.
Okay, it's just circulated to this group and the,
Yes, we'll
Okay.
get the trust statements and then we'll make sure that what they recorded is properly posted on the records of the city.
and that it's correctly reflected in the financial system.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate that. We'll move on now to the building side of this. Rob,
Rob Gaylor, Westfield Fire Department. Yeah, on here we have Mr. Smith and Mr. Delagrange from Hagerman. What I would like to do now is have Greg answer some of your questions. I believe that you're referring to the timeline and where we are at in the project, looking for breaking ground, if you will, and some of that. Greg?
Yeah, so you broke up there a little bit, Rob, so I think I caught most of it, but just an update where we're at construction-wise. Design in particular, we're kind of through 100% drawings now. We did kind of a final review a couple weeks ago with Chief Gaylor and his team. So this afternoon, we actually have a call with the city engineers just to get an update on our ILP permit. That's the process we're at. We have a foundation release already from the state. We have a site contractor ready to start. So once we get through this improvement location permit, we're hoping to get mobilized and get started. So that's kind of where we're at, the construction process.
So again, on the timeline, Greg, I think you and I discussed, or I just reviewed, we're looking at mobilizing of equipment on the 29th through the 4th in that time frame to get some things on site and start the process.
Yeah, barring we get the improvement location permit
Correct.
Resolved this week. Yeah, we're looking at that first week of April of getting started on site. And then I think we talked, Chief, we're kind of around a 12-month, 13-month project. So I think right now we show end of February of 2023 on completion. Or March, I think, end of 2023.
Yeah, that February, March timeframe, barring delays or unforeseen things at this point.
Correct.
So by March of '23, once they break ground, 13-month process, and then we get into occupancy at that point?
Yes, so approximately a year, 12, 13 months from now, beginning of April, is when we're looking at that occupancy. It's going to take us a little while just internally to move equipment and set some things up to be fully functional out of that station. So I don't know how long that process is going to take. You know, in your personal lives, you move from house to house, you don't know. It may take a week, may take a month to get things set up to actually be operational out of that building. So yes, I would say summer of 2023,
Okay.
we will be up and operating out of that station.
Okay.
Rob, I'm sorry. Rob, from the transition standpoint, are those transition costs in this budget, or is that something that will be in the city's 2023 budget?
Transition costs, Steve, what do you mean?
Just physically moving, equipment and things from the current facility on 32 to the new location, anything related to that, setting up of new things that are outside of the...
Well, anything that is outside of the scope that's laid in the RFP, the phase 1 and the phase 2 process is going to be on us. So those will be budgeted items, requested items in the 23 budget.
Okay, so the moving expenses from one location to the other will be next year in the budget.
Correct.
In
I don't know how much moving expenses we're really going to see. When we're talking moving our own personal equipment, fire trucks, tires, oil filters,
Okay.
hose, stuff like that. We're going to keep those costs down to a minimum. We've got staff cars with pickup trucks, and that's why I'm saying it's going to be a process for that transition, right? We can haul equipment from one station to the next and not hire a U-Haul or a moving company to do that. We can take our time at it and get it right.
I've been looking at the timeline, it's pretty aggressive, it's pretty tight, 13 months. I appreciate the fact you can build one that quickly. And I realize that Hagerman is a pretty large company, can handle most anything, but like all projects, the plan seems to fall apart as soon as we stick a shovel in the ground. So are there contingency plans for some delays, that kind of thing, that are in place? And are you happy with those? Have you reviewed those with Hagerman, and are you happy with those?
I think like all good builders, they've got a timeline and a plan, and they're going to stick to that. And Greg, I think the real question for you and Brad is, what are the contingencies and the expectations with a possible delay in material or delivery and things like that?
Yeah, as you all know, the market's kind of crazy right now. So, but we've worked with Rob and his team diligently over here the last 4 or 5 months, and we've identified some long lead items, um, and we've actually placed them on order already. So, roofing materials has been one, some mechanical equipments with our design build partners. We've been diligently working with them on lead times and equipment selection. Um, Structural steel is already in the process of starting. So we hope that we've captured all of them long lead time items, but like construction happens, you always once in a while come up with a surprise. But we've done this before, so we're up for the challenge.
Good, okay.
Do you guys, when you make, do you pay rent in the building now?
I don't think your microphone's on, Larry.
No, it's on.
That's on.
Can you?
No, Larry, the question was,
I think Jim Crawford had a question too. His lips were moving, but we weren't hearing it.
So it wasn't John.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was
I've
just
been
wondering,
muted now,
you know,
money
if you
muted.
guys pay
That's a
rent in the
dangerous thing to
building
have
that you're
happen.
in now,
Uh,
and, you know, when that would come off.
Because the statutes don't allow lease payments until the project's been completed, there's an exhibit to the lease, I think it's Exhibit C, by which, and it's signed by the mayor and the clerk treasurer on behalf of the city as lessee, and it's signed by Ron and whoever the president is and the secretary of the building corporation as the lessor. Which is delivered to the trustee, and in that certificate, it notes what the completion date of the project is and that it's been placed in service.
No, I was
So that's-
referring to where you're at now, you know. You know,
so the question was, do we pay lease or rent in the building that we're currently in? And the answer to that is no. The
Okay.
bond fell off 2 years ago, is that right, John? Almost 2 years ago now. So no, the city owns the facility that we're in, and it's a shared facility with the police department and the fire department.
okay.
Yeah, Jim, we did not have lease rental during construction. It's my recollection.
Yeah, that's correct. Lease payments start, what is it, February, January 15th to 24.
So you got lots of gap between, if your project runs long, you've got 9 months.
The either
for your first
occupancy
lease
or the
payment. So from a financial
February
standpoint, you
1st,
should be in good shape.
24, right?
Yeah, the standard is we always build in 6 extra months.
I'm sorry, Greg, I didn't hear that.
The standard is we always build in 6 extra months.
Yes. Okay. Any questions for? the
But
board?
keep it timely and get it built.
Right.
What is-
And he said, it's standard to have the 6 month, he said, but let's keep it timely and get it built. Agreed. Any other questions?
Any other
Concerns?
questions for Bill? Okay. Jeremy, you got any questions or anything that you would like to have addressed? No? All right. Well, gentlemen of the board, do you have any questions for either the financial or for Bill?
This is Steve. I just a question for Jeremy and John, I guess. What do you see our role being going forward? Do you envision us needing to meet again this year? Should we meet 1 or 2 more times? What's the process that you'd like to have from us so that we can set some meetings, get them on the books if that's the case?
Yeah, at this point, I think your awareness of what's happening, it probably, given the time of year, quarterly will be plenty enough. And then in the case of one of my ideas here, or one of the purposes behind the packets to you guys and to the mayor, is so that you are aware of the current And then.
John, you're
when-
coming in and out.
When you do meet, you would have the information where we are currently and what the next 3 months looks like. So we would combine the construction schedule with the financing, and you would have a picture that would show that quarter to quarter to quarter jump. I don't think I can see any reason for you to have any more frequency than that right now during the construction period.
Should we go ahead and just schedule the next quarterly meetings for the rest of the year? And then if we don't need to meet, we can cancel it, but that way it's
I
on
do.
the books.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea because it sets the tone going forward. We have a sense, of there is a meeting, there's a purpose to the meeting, and then we'll have an agenda, and that agenda would cover those items. We could have the folks from the construction group come in or Zoom or Teams in. If you have questions, we could have that prepared before the meeting.
Yes.
Okay. That sounds good. All right.
So I'll connect with you and Rochelle, and we'll get something with us on the books.
Yeah, and just make sure she includes Chris Larson.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Jim, maybe to help them, what is their formal notification requirement if they want to set a meeting? They find something urgent, they need to set the meeting in the next 2 weeks. Is it a 48-hour notice? It's definitely not a published 7-day notice or anything like that, right?
Right.
You're on mute.
Somebody keeps muting me. Probably me. It's just a standard open door notice of 48 hours. And then if an agenda is used, posting to that agenda immediately prior to the meeting.
Perfect. Thanks, Jim.
Okay, are there any public comments? Anyone like to speak? Hearing none. I'd like to make a comment. Thank you very much for your attention today.
We're barely hearing you.
Sorry about that. Thank you all for attending the meeting today, coming in and helping us better understand exactly where we are with the projects today and what we're going to do moving forward. I think we have a plan. Appreciate the information that you shared with us today and how we can move forward. If there's any other comments?
I would just like to note that the request was made that we receive a copy of all of the bonding documents and all of those things on behalf of the board. Those have all been received and saved, so we have copies of all of those documents, in addition to what obviously they have, but so just so you know.
Do we have those copies now?
I didn't hear that.
They're in the cloud.
They're what?
They're in the cloud. Yeah,
Yeah,
we have them.
Okay, we have them, right.
No other comments.
Okay. You have comment? Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming today. Appreciate it. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you, y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.